Hello and welcome into the Cali to Cuse Up in the Rafters podcast. March is here, ladies and gentlemen. This is your home for college basketball, and we couldn't be more excited. That is the month of March, and Selection Sunday is days away. We're recording this on Thursday, March 11th. New episodes of Cali to Cuse come out every Friday morning, and you can get our episodes anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Challenge Sports. I'm your host, Anthony Scott. Joined alongside me, as always, is Lucas Silverman and Andrew Papi Carey. Papi, how we doing today?
Doing good. Almost Friday, shirt on, ready to go,
Friday beers are right around the corner. I got to ask you, though, about Charles Pride and the Bryant Bulldogs. Charles Pride, Liverpool High School native alum. That's where we went to high school, and he was balling out for his Bryant Bulldogs in their conference championship game. 33 points. Sadly, Bryant comes up a little short, but what an effort from the sophomore.
Yeah, obviously an incredible effort from Charles Pride. 33 of his team, 68 in the NEC championship game. A fellow Liverpool alum, like you mentioned, won a state championship there. It's kind of cool to see him play well at the next level. And, he's only a sophomore, I believe, sophomore eligibility. So he's got a couple more years, and we'll see where his career could go from there.
I'm predicting Charles Pride wins Northeast Conference Player of the Year if he stays through his senior year. He's got a lot of talent, and he plays the forward position. Obviously can hit the three. So excited to see a Liverpool alum balling out because our rivals in high school, they have Breonna Stewart. So they have a lot of bragging rights on us. Hopefully Charles Pride can make a career out of himself. Definitely has a chance to play overseas, maybe in the NBA one day if he keeps improving. But moving over to our second analyst, Lucas Silverman. How we doing down in the city?
Doing pretty good. It's beautiful out today. It was 65 in March in New York. Doesn't make sense.
Hey, welcome to New York. The city that never sleeps, and you can never sleep on the weather because one day it could be snowing. We're probably going to get snow this weekend. Just watch out for that.
No, yeah, good point. I mean, we're taking it in and soaking it in as much as we can before we get pelted with snow next week. So
New York is the greatest tease of all weather destinations. You get 1 week and you think you're out of the woods, and then pound you with another snowstorm. But we have a great episode ahead of you on Cali to Cuse Up in the Rafters. Let's get to it. Lots of bubble talk. Obviously, a few days away from Selection Sunday. Championship week is rolling on. We've had 11 tickets punched to the NCAA tournament so far. We'll break down some of the bigger conference tournaments, talk about the bubble. But first, let's give a shout-out to our sponsor. We moved over to the challenge-sports.com. If you haven't heard, I kind of feel sorry for you at this point. We've been on the Challenge Sports for pretty much all year, and they have a lot of articles over there, merchandise, a bunch of sports, not just college basketball, other podcasts as well. So check them out over at the challenge-sports.com. And we're also linking up with them. Big news here, the bracket challenge, obviously Selection Sunday right around the corner. So almost time for you guys to start filling out your brackets. And you can join the Cali to Cuse bracket challenge on ESPN. We have 2 bracket challenges for you. One of them's free. We're going to give out some challenge merchandise. A nice T-shirt is going over to the first place winner of that. And then we have a second bracket challenge, which is a little bit of an entry fee. I believe we're going to do $20 a bracket, some prize money. Be on the lookout on our Twitter at Cali to Cuse for some details on how to get involved with that. But enough of the promotions. Let's get into some bracket talk. The bubble is where we're going to start today. And what better place to start than the team that's always on the bubble, the Syracuse Orange.
Talk about cardiac Cuse. After an impressive win in the second round of the ACC tournament against NC State, really showed out and really impressed a lot of people. And, a lot of people were thinking, hey, could they potentially, upset the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament in Virginia? They got smacked by them earlier in the season, but unfortunately they did fall to UVA in shocking fashion. I thought it was going to overtime, and Beacon, what's his last name? Beekman, hit the game winner to send UVA to the semifinals of the ACC tournament, where they'll keep rolling. But talk about a missed opportunity. Obviously you never know what happens in overtime, but based on the product that you saw in the ACC tournament, we'll start with Pop. NC State, talk about the successes they had with NC State, and then, even more impressive, how they hung with an impressive team like the UVA.
Yeah, obviously, we'll start with NC State. That was probably one of Syracuse's, top 3 best games of the year in terms of how they played. shooting 14 of 29 from the three-point line as a team. They're going to win a lot of games if they do that. The defense was a big issue in the beginning part of the season, but it's kind of gotten a little better as we've gone along here. Boeheim plays a little bit of Braswell, Jesse Edwards, Kadari, obviously. A couple more defensive-minded guys sprinkled into the rotation, and that's helped. I think it helped against NC State, and I certainly think it's helped down the stretch against the likes of Carolina, Clemson, some of those big wins that they picked up. Now moving over to Virginia a little bit, Buddy Boeheim, obviously tremendous ACC tournament, averaging 29 points per game. Yeah, you got to give him all the credit in the world. Unfortunately, they couldn't get it done against Virginia. I would have liked to seen a little more Jesse Edwards. They only get out-rebounded by the Wahoos by 3, but still I think in a game that's decided by one possession, a buzzer-beating 3, those 3 possessions could have proven to be big for Syracuse. 8 of 22 from the three-point line, came back down to earth a little bit after NC State, unfortunately. But Alan Griffin is the big story to me, 0 points. That was really disappointing. I also don't know if Boeheim did him any favors. By the way, he was just kind of like tossing him into the game and then hoping he would create something. If he didn't, it was an immediate yank. So those are just kind of my overarching thoughts, but it's an unfortunate loss.
One thing that I did notice, one of the best plays of the game was that Allen Griffin behind the back to Guerrier for the slam. That was beautiful. So that's some playmaking that I wish I saw a little bit more out of. A.Scott, Braswell, how many times have we talked about Braswell this season? Maybe 2 or 3. And has Boeheim just been keeping him in his back pocket for when it matters most? I mean, now the rotation is a solid 8 instead of 6 and 7. So what went right for Syracuse and NC State, and then obviously a buzzer-beating 3 is devastating.
Yeah, I mean, the NC State game, that was just hot shooting from Syracuse. We looked like the better team from start to finish. Really quality win. When Buddy Boeheim shooting like that, it's going to be hard to beat Syracuse. He leads the ACC in three-pointers made, showed why in both games. So I'm glad we took care of business of NC State. I think that really kind of solidified our position on the bubble in the tournament. Currently, as it stands, I have Syracuse as one of the play-in games. I have them as the 4th to last team getting into the tournament. You can check out all my predictions as well at thechallenge-sports.com. Might as well plug that one more time. But no, Syracuse definitely in a solid spot, I would say. If they were able to beat Virginia, though, that really secures their spot and maybe even moves them up a whole other seed line. Instead, a 3-point from a 28% three-point shooter ends those hopes. But yeah, Braswell finally playing. You see Syracuse, a lot of times players have their coming out party kind of in the conference tournament. Maybe that's going to be Braswell this year. If only we were giving him 20 minutes at the start of the season, maybe he would have developed a little bit quicker. I don't know, maybe Boeheim's just right all along and he wasn't ready, and now finally something's clicked here in the last couple weeks. But Braswell, very streaky shooter, was able to knock down a couple today, plays good defense. I love him in the zone. Definitely way better than Alan Griffin down low. Even though Griffin does get a few blocks here and there, I think Braswell overall, though, I like his defense a lot. But yeah, you touched on it, Papi. We get out rebounded. Jesse Edwards plays 2 minutes. He looks to be getting better and better every game. Jesse Edwards makes a hell of a lot difference on defense with Merrick as the 5 instead of Jesse Edwards. Jesse Edwards provides a lot more, just kind of the fear factor, if you will, of the other players just going in against a guy that's that lanky. It's going to adjust their shot no matter what. In 2 minutes, yeah, not enough. Jay Huff is a very good big on Virginia, so I would have liked to see Syracuse use Edwards a little more.
It's one of those situations where I feel like they lost. Like the record's going to show a loss, but I think it more is a win for Syracuse. It shows that they played, they can hang with the bigger teams in the conference, and they showed that, they can be that hot team. I was thinking the breakout player might be Buddy. I mean, Pop mentioned 30 points a game in the ACC tournament is pretty impressive. Braswell will chip in here and there, but the big guy that comes out of here looking squeaky clean is Buddy. I had a question. What's up with Joe Girard just pulling transition threes? Is that part of the game? I mean, is that part of the flow of the offense? Every time I see it, I just am baffled on why he does that. And I haven't seen him make one, I don't think.
That's all he's in the game for. He knows that the new basketball, new way of basketball, just shoot as many threes as possible. But Poppy, I want to ask you real quick. Alan Griffin didn't get a lot of playing time, and instead we saw Braswell get in. Would a lineup of Dolezaj and Guerrier at the wing with Edwards been our most optimal lineup potentially?
I think that's probably their best lineup at the moment, at least defensively. It allows Merrick to go to the wing where he's pretty good in the zone defensively, but even more so, I think he's more comfortable on the offensive side of the ball too at power forward as kind of like a point forward role, like making plays, kind of facilitating for other guys. Buddy, even some interior passing with Carey A, and even the possibility to dump it off to a big man like Edwards. I think that would help on the offensive end a lot too. It's a tough way to end your season potentially. There's no way around it. Like you said, 2 minutes for Edwards though. It's a little disappointing just because every game now people kind of say, oh, look at Jesse Edwards, he's really coming along, and it just doesn't seem to change necessarily. As long as Dolezaj's out of foul trouble, he's not coming in really.
Mm-hmm. Joe Girard though, yeah, the 1 for 8 from 3. Kadary, he played minutes, and he got like 17, almost 20 minutes. Only took 2 shots though. He wasn't very active on the offensive end.
Kadary, you can tell every time he's running up and down the court. He's got a knee injury right now that's been reported. It's being talked about a little bit, and it looks like he's totally playing through some pain. He doesn't have that same sort of burst on offense or defense where he can, especially on defense, he's anticipating the passing lanes and where guys are going to throw the ball, and he's been able to get some great steals, and we haven't seen that recently from him.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, in your estimation, have they proven themselves to make the tournament, in your honest opinion?
I think so. I mean, in years past, I would maybe be inclined to say no, but I really just don't think this bubble is strong at all. A ton of Mountain West teams at the top. I keep talking about that on the show, but I just don't see that conference as a multi-bid league if San Diego State wins their conference championship. And I mean, I just think Syracuse has kind of put themselves ahead of the other teams too, just based on how they've been playing down the stretch. Sometimes that's talked about as they want to put teams in the tournament with a little bit of momentum. So maybe that'll help them, but we'll see.
Yeah, Syracuse, I think they'll get in just simply because the bubble's weaker. I mean, the Clemson win was huge. The Clemson win and North Carolina win, I mean, without those, I don't think Syracuse is even on the bubble discussion. So thank God we were able to get it together here down the stretch. But with the Kadary knee injury, I don't see this team going far in the NCAA tournament. Right now we're hanging on by a thread of Buddy Boeheim making 6 threes a game, and that's just not going to happen every single game. So if we get in, I'm not expecting much unless Kadary is healthy, because I think the knee injury, you're right, it is kind of noticeable.
So Syracuse, going to have to wait and see. It's to be expected. I feel like since I've known you guys, it's been like 5 or 6 years. I feel like every single time they're on the bubble. I've never. There was the one year they made the Final Four. They were certified in, I think. But
they were still a bubble team that year, yeah.
But like, I just feel like every year it just comes down to how they play in the ACC tournament, and we walk away feeling, they look like they can hang. They're not as, and they've had more talented teams. I think we all can agree that this is not the most talented team that they've had in recent years. But we'll see. I mean, they in the tough ACC with a lot of things left to go. I mean, you have Miami right now in the quarterfinals. I think they just lost today, but anything can happen in March. I think they're in 2. I think they deserve to at least be in the first 4, like you mentioned, A.Scott. I think they deserve to be in it. They smoked NC State. Like, they were clearly the better team, and they hung with a very, very good team in UVA. I've talked about this before. Kihei Clark at 5'9". I hate it. Hate every second of it. We'll never love it.
I just want to say I was watching St. John Seton Hall, and they were talking to the Fox Sports bracketologist there. I forget his name. But they're asking how many bids each conference would get, and he said the ACC should get 8. And Syracuse is that 8th place team, so it's not Duke, it's not NC State. Syracuse would be that 8th team. And back to the bubble conversation, Papi, I know you have your thoughts about Syracuse becoming this mediocre bubble squad now.
Yeah, I mean, I do obviously have my thoughts about that. I think I've laid out why I think the program has kind of taken that step back and become a bubble team. But Lucas, you mentioned every year it seems like they're on the bubble since we've gotten to know you, and I think that really is the case, honestly. I mean, you mentioned the Final Four year. Maybe that year they were kind of securely in a little bit, but the one difference this year, in my opinion, is just the fact that they're playing better down the stretch. A lot of times for these Syracuse teams, it's like we're kind of looking at what we did in January and the beginning of ACC play and kind of like banking on those wins to get us in. Whereas this year, I think it's a little more we can count on some of our recent success as well as, the Virginia Tech win back in late January and a couple decent non-conference wins, I guess, against like okay majors. But I'm kind of grabbing at straws here now.
Well, totally. And, it puts us in a bind because either we're going to have a podcast on Tuesday discussing them in the first four, or we can take a couple more days off and talk about them being solidified in the tournament or heartbreak. Either way, we'll give you the final Syracuse update coming up next week, when we find out on more come Sunday. I'll be glued to the TV for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of just laid out our thoughts. I think we're all in agreement that they should get in. So maybe even earlier podcast if they don't get in. If we have a shocker on Selection Sunday, we may have to go live or something and get our anger out. But moving over to some teams that will not be dancing surely come this March are a couple blue bloods. Duke in the ACC and Kentucky in the SEC have both been knocked out of their conference tournaments respectively. Duke got knocked out not by another team, by their own selves. They got COVID, somebody within the program, and Kentucky today lost to Mississippi State. First time since 1975, 1976 that neither of these teams are dancing in March. Duke, though, if they beat Florida State, Papi, do you think that they could have gotten in? And just, I guess, how does this maybe feel for Duke fans? I feel like they're going to be using this as an excuse come next year.
Yeah, I mean, had they beaten Florida State, I think that definitely things could have gotten interesting, especially coming down the stretch. They only would have had to win 2 more games in the ACC tournament. But, yeah, I mean, I guess they can say it's an excuse and it ended their season prematurely. But honestly, I don't think this Duke team deserved to get in, and we saw that during the regular season. The talent just didn't seem like it was there and as it was in years past, or at least they were never able to gel and play as a unit, and that hurt them.
Mm-hmm. Lucas, I know you're high on your Blue Bloods entering the season, especially Kentucky. We've been touched on it all year, but now Duke and Kentucky, they're going to be back on top next year, right? We don't expect this to be a continuing thing where they're missing the tournament.
No, this is an outlier. This season is a full asterisk season. Coach K said it himself. Shouldn't have scheduled all those games. This team wasn't ready for it. I think that they reload like they always do. I think the teams that's currently structured might be changing a lot, though. I think you could see some transfers from the program to try to fit in the freshmen that are coming in and some movement, guys declaring for the draft, things of that nature, because especially for Kentucky, underperformed. But they were playing the best schedule, so you have to give them some credit. But you go to Kentucky to get your name out there, to show that you can hang with the best talent in college, and that gets your stock right. Like we've seen the P.J. Washingtons of the world, the Tyler Heroes of the world, the Tyrese Maxeys of the world, the Emmanuel Quickleys of the world just step up by being put in very pressurized situations. And this team crumbled, absolutely crumbled. Duke, I agree with Pop. Florida State win definitely changes the conversation a little bit. But seeing what would they have been 14-11? Seeing 14-11 just would have been just absurd to see, a team that has double-digit losses in a COVID year make it to the tournament.
You're going to see that in the Big Ten, though. That's the thing. Like, I think if Duke beat Florida State, it would have been very interesting. Because right now I have them as my first 4 out, even without even playing the Florida State game. So if they win that, I think I would have had to move them in there, which is crazy to think about.
Makes your job a little easier that they're out. So now you can just nix them and then on to the next.
Definitely. But yeah, Duke, Kentucky being out, I definitely see these teams coming back to the forefront of college basketball next year. They always have top 5, top 10 recruiting classes. But one thing to note is the last time that both these teams were out of the tournament, it was also the last time that a team went undefeated, Papi. So the Zags, are we locking them in now?
I mean, yeah, that's the obvious answer, right? It's got to be Gonzaga's year then. That's just kind of an interesting stat, obviously, that both of those teams missed it in the same year and a team ran the table. But, yeah, I mean, Kentucky as well, not that challenging of an SEC this year either, and they couldn't get it together ultimately when it was all said and done, kind of similar to Duke. It was weird. I mean, obviously, we all know that these teams have talent, but they couldn't gel and they couldn't get it done in the big moments, and they're not going to be dancing.
Are you hurt that they're not in the tournament? I mean, I'm happy if Duke's not in, but I feel like the casual basketball fan, the NCAA in general, they're not happy. I feel like could maybe lose some viewers.
Yeah, I'm sure the NCAA tournament isn't too happy. I personally love it. I don't want to see either of those teams, but you know, I think that definitely that's going to hurt some ratings maybe.
Lucas, you're still tuning in even though Kentucky's not there.
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. I mean, Cal's in the quarterfinals of the Pac-12 tournament, so we may be seeing them in the tournament, so I'll have another reason to watch.
Don't sleep on just when you think the Cal Bears are out. That's when they get going.
Where was Stanford? Was Stanford even close to your bracket at all?
Yeah, my bracket going into this week, Stanford was like one of the first two teams that were past the next four out. So they had some work to do, and yeah, losing that first game definitely scratches them right off.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there's really no bubble teams in the Pac-12. I think it's solidified with your Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Colorado. And then maybe if Cal can win the tournament, maybe they can get a fifth team in there. What if Cal wins the tournament, gets an extra bid for the Pac-12, and that's the bid that keeps Syracuse out of it?
You guys got to pray they get COVID so Cuse can take their spot.
That's right, the COVID replacement team. When you're out, you're never really out in the COVID year. But moving over to some big-time teams in the Big Ten, this conference is projected to have the most teams come March, and we may see some double-digit loss teams get in. And a pair of those teams are taking on each other today in the conference tournament on Thursday, Michigan State and Maryland. Maryland was able to take down Michigan State. It's the second time this year the Terrapins have beaten the Spartans. Michigan State, they got some big wins late in the season. I think they took down Ohio State and Michigan late in the season, Papi. Are they going to be in the tournament?
You know, Michigan State right now, a lot of people I think they have on the inside of the tournament. They're on the right side of that line, but certainly that loss today did not help them. They've been playing well down the stretch a little bit, at least in the more significant games, like you mentioned, recently knocking off Ohio State and Michigan. But I think Sparty's probably going to get in, but today they did not help themselves at all. They went on a massive scoring drought where their offense kind of became extremely stagnant. And really Maryland was able to take control of the game after like a quick 10-0, 12-0 run. And that was kind of their problem early in the season. They couldn't find where to get offense from, and their defense was just okay. It wasn't great. So I think if they do get in, I don't see them going too far just because they have real problems scoring. But some other teams in the Big Ten playing right now, Indiana and Rutgers. Rutgers really needing a win. I know earlier in the year this podcast was extremely high on Rutgers, and they are 14-10 right now. Kind of just, trying to hang on to an NCAA tournament bid.
Yeah, the Big Ten is a mess when you get past the Iowas, Illinois, Ohio State, Michigan class. Then it's just everybody's beating up on each other. Lucas, I think your Spartans are in. Rocket Watts and company. He's really kind of the third string over there in Michigan State now. But you liking this Michigan State team if they do get in?
Oh, yeah, I like this Michigan State team if they get in. They got two really good guards that can get to the rim and shoot at a good three-point clip. But also, this is also a prelude to next year. They're going to be the top 10 team next year. I think they have the number one recruit coming in. I think he's going to reclassify, go to Michigan State, Amani Bates. And he's going to be at Michigan State, and Rocket Watts is going to stay, and they're going to be completely reloaded. This is just more, the cherry on top of a delicious sundae for this team.
Now, one thing interesting is both Maryland and Michigan State, I have them both in my bracket. They're both 9-11. They finished the Big Ten season at 9-11. Is the Big Ten that good where they deserve teams that aren't even going 500 in the conference, Lucas?
I think this conference is probably the biggest winner out of the COVID-ridden season. I think they were able to showcase the talent. They had so many games. They would beat up on each other, but it was really high-quality basketball. Every game was a dogfight. You had different guys step up. You had the Player of the Year in the conference, and just a loaded conference altogether. I think they are the biggest winners of the COVID season, and they probably deserve to have the most teams by a mile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's really credit to those top teams. You have 4 teams in the Big Ten that are really looking at 1 or 2 seeds, which might be unheard of, honestly. Michigan and Illinois, I think, are locked into the 1 seeds, and then Iowa and Ohio State, they're fighting for 2 seeds, and at worst, they're going to have 3 seeds. So when you look at it, when a team loses to one of those 4 teams, can you really fault them? And I feel like that's why we see a lot of these teams with 10, 11 losses in the Big Ten still securely in the tournament. Michigan State had one of the harder schedules in the Big Ten. They played Michigan twice, Ohio State twice, Iowa twice, and they also played Illinois. None of those games got canceled because of COVID or anything like that. Their schedule is so hard, and they actually beat a couple of the top teams like Michigan and Ohio State. I actually have Michigan State up as an 8-9 seed range. So I have them pretty securely in, which is higher than a lot of people, but it just speaks to how difficult it is to beat these teams at the top of the Big Ten. And the committee, at least what the projections are saying, aren't really faulting them for losing those games.
Yeah, no, Anthony, where do you have Rutgers? Sorry, Lucas.
Rutgers is right with Michigan State. They're both – right now I have let me scroll up here. Rutgers I have as an low 7 seed, and Michigan State's a high 8 seed. So, yeah.
Okay.
I might even be giving too much weight to the Big Ten because I have BYU and San Diego State lower than those teams, and I know a lot of the projections give BYU and San Diego State 7 seeds, and those are kind of where I have those Big Ten teams. So that's the biggest question mark for this tournament is where do the mid-majors factor into all this, because the non-conference schedule is really where you get to see the mid-majors shine, and a lot of that was taken away.
I mean, ACC bias is brutal. I wonder what Big Ten bias is. It's like all these, they played the most games. Teams had triple headers with like Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa, like back to back to back. Like, what are you supposed to do against those 3 elite teams? It's a really tough conference. They beat up on each other. There's a impressive quad. It depends what the committee decides to decide it by. Quad 1 wins. How good was your conference? I think it's going to come down way more to that than the non-conference schedule this year. That was irrelevant. And with that type of formula, that means Michigan State gets in. And it probably should be higher than a mid-major like a San Diego State BYU, Tony Brackets.
Exactly. I'm with you on that. I'm pulling for Michigan State. They're kind of my biggest team that I want to see ranked higher because they have beaten these teams. I don't think if Colorado State got to play Michigan and Iowa 4 times that they'd win even one of them, and Michigan State was able to go 500 against those games. So give it to who you beat, It's a shame that Colorado State didn't get to play those good teams, but that's what the non-conference is for. It's not like it was all canceled. They still had 4 or 5 games that they got in. You really got to challenge yourself if you're a mid-major, especially when you want to compare yourself with a team that's playing a ranked opponent seemingly at least once a week, probably twice a week. I mean, it's just a brutal schedule. Maryland, though, also have them in. They're still playing. They could even make a run. Who knows? Outside of that, though, Indiana, Minnesota, those type of teams, Penn State, I don't see those teams getting in. I think it's got to get capped at Maryland, right, Papi?
Yeah, it'll probably get capped around Maryland, and then we go from there. I mean, it was a really strong Big Ten this year, obviously. You guys laid it out pretty well, so incredible how they're playing these teams night in and night out and competing. I think that Michigan, on paper, that's what was so impressive about them is I wasn't too high on them coming into the season, and then they were really able to just roll through this conference kind of out of nowhere, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Purdue's another team that I feel like has shocked some people.
Yeah, definitely.
Purdue's up there. They're securely. I think Purdue's near a top 4 seed for me. I think they're 4 or 5 seed.
I think the hottest Big Ten team, though, of all of them has to be Illinois, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess, yeah. Since this is the best conference, we'll go to Lucas. Who do you expect to go the furthest, and do you see a champion coming from the Big Ten?
I think that at the top of the list, you have to go Michigan. I think Michigan has the best chance. When they have it rolling, I think they're pretty unstoppable. But if a team can just get them out of rhythm, but it's really hard to get out of rhythm with their guard to the post action, as well as a lot of the 3-point shots that they make. They shoot at a very high clip. And then Illinois, I love Illinois. I thought that they really got it figured out, and the impressive wins without their best player. I forget his name right now. Jasunwu. We talk about him every day. And blanked. And then, I'm not going to sleep on Luka Garza. I think, this might be a tournament where if you're the best player in the conference or in the country, you have a chance to, make your team relevant in any game.
Yeah.
So that's 3. I answered in 3 pieces, but there's really 3 teams that I think can make a deep run.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think those are pretty much the 3 clear teams. Maybe Ohio State as well. Illinois is my top dog. Papi, I know you're a Big Ten hater. Chances, give me a percentage chance that a team from the Big Ten wins it all.
15%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't won one since the year 2000, so I got history on my side.
To me, that's just incredible. Call yourself.
Illinois, in my opinion, is the only real threat to win it all.
Wow. We'll have to see. Big Ten's going to have a lot of teams in the Big Dance. So every day, every pretty much hour, they'll have a team playing in the NCAA tournament once it gets going. But moving over to some other conferences, talking about some bubble teams. We'll go to the SEC, stay with some Power 5 conferences. Ole Miss, LSU are kind of on a track right now to meet in the quarterfinal of the SEC tournament if they're both able to win their previous games. They're both on the bubble. LSU in a little better spot than Ole Miss. Ole Miss really on the bubble in a lot of projections. Joe Lunardi has them out. I have them right behind Syracuse, barely in the tournament. Now, LSU has a lot of great guard play. Ole Miss, to be honest with you, I haven't really seen play this year. But judging on their resume, they also have a lot of bad losses. The SEC, they're right there with the ACC. Do you want to see Ole Miss and LSU get in, Papi, still over these Mountain West teams?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really just out on mid-majors this year, and a big reason for that is the fact that the non-conference schedule didn't really matter too much this season because there was not a ton of non-conference games, so all these teams are playing the majority of their opponents in conference, beating up on each other in the cases of the SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. Those are, probably the 4 best conferences in the country. And on the other side, you have, the likes of Boise State in the Mountain West, Utah State, Colorado State, and San Diego State playing each other, and none of them separating themselves from the field except for maybe San Diego State. So if that's the case and they're all kind of, mediocre, Boise State just got done losing in their first round of the conference tournament to Nevada. So I think they're probably done now. I just don't see how you can put those teams in over – the likes of an SEC or the likes of an Ole Miss team from the SEC who has a road win at Missouri. They have a home win against Missouri, so they've beaten them twice. They have a win over Tennessee, so they got some good wins on here, and I just don't think any of those teams from the Mountain West can really match that.
Yeah, this is another scenario where you look, maybe a team playing well down the stretch gets the nod because Ole Miss at the start of the season, I mean, the schedule is brutal to start, but in the SEC, they started 1-5, and then they went on this run. They finished 10-8, so it's at 9-3 over the last 12 games here to end the season. Ole Miss, yeah, just like you said, they have the quality wins. Colorado State, Utah State, they've yet to go out and prove that they can beat a quality team. Boise State's proved that with UCLA. I don't want to close the book on Boise State. I think if they make a run, they can maybe get in. But other than that, I want to see these SEC. What was that?
They're done. They can't make a run. They lost, Boise State.
Oh, I didn't know they already lost their first game.
Yeah, they just lost.
Yeah, breaking news. Breaking news on Cali to Cuse.
Yeah.
Break it to me. What did they lose right now?
Yeah, they just lost to Nevada.
There you go. Boise State out of the tournament mix. Yeah, so Ole Miss even further in. Syracuse even further in. Less teams to worry about. I like this. I like the LSU team a lot. I think they could actually make some noise. Lucas, are you on the same page that these Power 5 conferences should maybe get a little advantage over the mid-majors?
Oh, 1,000%. I think we kind of talked about that in the ACC topic. Like, I particularly love that LSU team. I remember that Alabama-LSU game, and I saw it was so free-flowing. It was the most NBA-like game I've ever seen. Up and down, threes on threes on threes. They play really fast pace. Their guards love getting to the rim and attacking the basket. And they have a couple of guys that have been there for a little bit. I think back when Naz Reid was there and they had some other talent, they had a couple guys still over there. And I like that team. Ole Miss, I agree, A.Scott, I don't know too much about them, but you got to give credit to a team that just plays better competition night in and night out. It's just how it goes. I mean, like, if we're going to say it's going to be the 1 year we do it, it might as well be this year, when we have super bias versus the Big 10 or the Big 5, Power 5, excuse me.
Yeah, winning record in the SEC. SEC still a solid conference. Really, Arkansas has really come around. They're having a great year. Alabama's obviously been on top all season long. Papi, I see in the rundown you were wondering if Arkansas can get maybe a 1 seed if they run the tournament. I don't really see that. They are 21-5 though, so that would be super impressive. It'd be 24-5 they'd be going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. I mean, I know you said you think that the 1 seeds are pretty much locked up with Illinois being the 4th one. Obviously, Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan taking the top 3. I just think if Illinois were to lose and then you have, either Bama or Arkansas win this conference, I think there'd be a decent case for them to get a number 1 seed, but I would have no problem with it still going to Illinois.
Yeah, I think if Arkansas and Alabama meet up in that championship game and they both have a chance to get another quad 1 win, I feel like that's huge. And, yeah, if Illinois goes out early in the Big Ten tournament, definitely opens up the door. Lucas, you saw Bama LSU play. Is Bama the cream of the crop? Are they really this good?
Yes, I think so. I think they have a 3-headed monster at the 1, 2, and the 3. I think that Javon Quinterly coming off the bench is kind of a boost for them, the Villanova transfer. And they just can create shots. Like, I like teams that have good offenses, and usually Bama's been known for, like, athletic defenders, I feel like, in a way. And now they just have absolute snipers that just shoot the ball at a very high clip. And that team is very, very, very solid. And if they win the tournament, the SEC tournament, then they should be a 1 seed over Illinois. Yeah.
I like that. Still a lot to be decided. It kind of just shows how much there really is to be decided on this championship week. And when I was making my most recent bracket update, I was surprised to see how many teams I was moving from one line to the other. And I didn't really think I was making that big of a move, but just one big win really does give your resume that much boost, especially when the teams around you are losing. So a lot is to be decided. And let's actually talk about the Mountain West real quick. Lucas, have you seen any of these teams play? Because Boise State, Colorado State, Utah State, they all just beat up on each other. Do you want to see any of these teams in unless they win their conference tournament? Obviously, Boise State's done. So I'd say Colorado State's the only other team that we should be worried about.
The one that plays on blue turf. Which one's that one? Oh, yeah. We're talking football or basketball? Nah, none of those teams deserve to get it.
Yeah. That's great. Like you said, Boise State lost. That was some big news. Definitely opens up the door for other teams. San Diego State, I guess that now becomes the question. How high could they be seeded? I have them as a 9 seed right now. I have them lower than an 8 seed. I actually just moved them up after their win over Wyoming and Michigan State's loss to Maryland. I had a switch there. But San Diego State, I have them on the 8 seed. I don't know if I see them making a run. They beat UCLA, very good defensive team. But I think all these teams in the Mountain West, they struggle to score, Papi.
Yeah, they all struggle to score, and like we mentioned, they all just kind of have a tendency to beat up on each other. We touched on San Diego State earlier today, right before the Boise State game, actually. They almost were upset by Wyoming in the first round of their conference tournament. They hung on to win by 1, and that really would have screwed over Syracuse and some other bubble teams potentially, just paving a way for another team to get a bid from there. But we're now looking at a situation almost where if your team is on the bubble, your favorite team, you're going to want San Diego State to win that conference championship, though, with everything you have. You need to root for that to happen. And if that does, I think your team is a lock probably. But I don't really want to see any of those other teams, honestly. I'll be honest, I haven't seen Utah State or Colorado State really play this year. I've seen a ton of Boise State, and I know what that team is. They're not a good team. They're pretty good on offense, and they're just horrendous on defense. They have no athleticism down low, and I just think that they would get totally exposed in the NCAA tournament by a good team.
Mm-hmm. And definitely back to the point about what you, I guess, grade more, the beginning of the season and the end of the season. And the NCAA tournament committee will always say we look at the resume as a whole, but I feel like there's no way that you should do that or they do that in general, because Boise State beat UCLA in the first game of the season. And I don't want to guarantee anything, but I'm pretty much close to guarantee if they played now that UCLA would beat Boise State. So much changes over a 25-game span, a 4-month span. That's where the coaching really comes into play. Yes, Boise State does get credit for beating UCLA in the beginning, but that's it, I had that all wrong. San Diego State beat UCLA. I got them all confused. But either way, even if Boise State did beat UCLA, it's the first game of the season. So much changes. And speaking of those conference tournaments where you're really rooting for teams, Syracuse is in a position where we might be rooting for Connecticut. How many times can we say that as Syracuse fans? Because the Big East tournament has already had some upsets. Villanova is gone. They lost to Georgetown. And the only 2 other locks from the Big East are Creighton and UConn. So if your team's on the bubble, you're rooting for Creighton or UConn to win the Big East. The biggest story, though, is Villanova going down to Georgetown. They really tumbled down the stretch, losing Connor Gillespie. Papi, these were your darlings. What's happened? Obviously, the injury bugs happened, but any hope for Villanova?
The injury bugs happen. I think that's been a huge problem for them. We've seen this team unlike a lot of Jay Wright teams, they're pretty inconsistent at shooting the three, and that's really come back to bite them. They have a lot of guys who do one thing well, but not a lot of things, decent. So take, for instance, Cole Swider, the forward off the bench. He's a tremendous three-point shooter, a stretch forward, but he can't play any defense. Today he gets dunked on by Georgetown center Wahab and gives up an and one when his team is up by 3 with 25 seconds to go. It's just inexcusable. But he had just hit a 3 on the other end. I don't know. I just think this team has a lot of talent, Villanova. Obviously losing their senior point guard, their leader on offense and defense, is really going to come back to bite them. I don't see them making it too far in the NCAA tournament now, to be honest with you. And the loss to Georgetown today really hurt. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl had a really good game, but he goes 6 of 12 from the free throw line, and he misses the front end of not the front end of a 1-and-1, but he missed the first free throw out of a 2 free throw sequence. And Nova's up by 1, and then they foul on the other end, and Georgetown hits 2 free throws. The game's over. So that's their best player now, Robinson-Earl, missing a free throw in a late game situation. Just can't happen. And I don't know, something about this team, they don't have like a mojo or an it factor anymore without Gillespie.
Yeah, Villanova's injury struggles. Creighton's had some personal struggles. Their coach saying some insensitive things in the locker room, got suspended recently. So does that mean that UConn is now the favorite, Lucas?
I feel like it has to be. Funny enough, when Ewing was in MSG and they were asking security kept asking him, like, who are you? And he's like, I am in the Rafters. Like, I am a legend here. He was getting asked, like, as he was going into the stadium, that he was getting – security was coming near him. But, yeah, it has to be UConn. Georgetown is left. Who are the other – I think there's a couple more games tonight.
Yeah, Creighton, UConn, Seton Hall, DePaul, I think it might still – or Butler is still around.
DePaul and UConn play tonight. And then you got Seton Hall, Creighton, and Georgetown. That's it.
Yeah, I feel like UConn has to be the favorite at this point with Boat Night back and, looks healthy. I think he's the type of player that can lead the team to the finals of the Big East.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, UConn, I mean, we've seen it before. They go on to win the Big East, and it's kind of a wrap from there. Shabazz Napier, Kemba Walker both had their separate runs to winning it all. I don't think maybe Bouknight is that player. I don't think he's that talented, but is a very special talent. I'm hoping UConn gets in because I do think they can make some noise. Creighton, Papi, Big East, Seton Hall. Are we scared of any of these other teams in the Big East? Seton Hall, St. John's, and Xavier are all right on the bubble with Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, I think Xavier losing to Butler the other day definitely hurts them. St. John's, they lose to Seton Hall today. So I just kind of see Seton Hall as head and shoulders above those teams a little bit in terms of bubble order and getting in. Now, if Seton Hall was to go out and beat UConn tomorrow, I think that would be a huge win for them as well, assuming UConn beats DePaul tonight, obviously. But I think we can pretty confidently say that should happen. But, yeah, I mean, it would just be devastating for Syracuse or any other bubble team if Georgetown or Seton Hall were to win this conference tournament. It really would hurt a lot of bubble teams, especially Georgetown. Obviously, that would really stink.
I was going to say, we're in a situation right now where Syracuse fans are really rooting for UConn, and Georgetown still has a chance to really break our hearts. I mean, nothing has really changed, even though –
Creighton or UConn, that's it.
Yeah, Creighton or UConn for sure is what all the bubble teams should be rooting for. I think the Big East, though, down year overall, it's a really tight race for that last spot in the tournament. And it comes down to, at what point does a resume look so bad that you really can't put a team in, and then by default you put Colorado State or Memphis or St. Louis in, because Seton Hall resume is not very good. 10-9 in the Big East, and it's a down year. I will say the one thing that I guess they have going for them a little bit, the way you want to look at it, is Seton Hall is one of the few teams who played Creighton and Villanova twice. So a lot of teams kind of got to escape. I think Xavier only played, Creighton once and didn't even play Villanova. So, some teams didn't even have to play the top teams, kind of improving their records. And Seton Hall, I wouldn't say was handed 4 losses, because they certainly could have won one of those games and been in the tournament. But, it just – I guess their 10-9 looks a lot better than St. John's is 10-9 when they only had to play Creighton once, I believe. And Seton Hall has to play a more brutal schedule, I would say.
So where do you have Villanova right now after the upset? How far did they drop?
So right now they're neck and neck with Creighton in my mind. Villanova and Creighton, I have them both as 5 seeds. If Creighton were to beat UConn tomorrow, assuming that's the matchup, Creighton would then move ahead of Villanova. Villanova I could see dropping down to even a 6 seed, depending on what goes on in the Pac-12. If Colorado or USC come away with that win, or if Missouri wins the SEC. Still so much to be decided, but I would expect Villanova to 4 would be the highest, and I think that's too high. I would say 5 is where they're going to be.
Got it.
Yeah, that's pretty low for a team like that. It just tells you how down the conference is to have their highest seeded team be like a 5 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, because the Big East, even though they lost a lot of teams, I mean, still the last few years they've put some pretty good teams in
of course,
in the tournament. UConn, Georgetown, Seton Hall, they're always around there. Providence has had some good years.
Creighton's good a lot.
Creighton as well. Any other, I guess, talking points you guys want to talk about? Oklahoma State is an interesting team. They just beat West Virginia today, and they are looking really, really good. If they did not have those 2 losses to TCU, they would have 4 losses on their resume in the Big 12, the second best conference in America. And I think they have a case at a 1 seed if they don't lose those 2 games to TCU. But they did. So I have them as a 2 seed. I want to know your thoughts on Oklahoma State. Papi, they beat your West Virginia Mountaineers today.
They beat them 2 times in a row now. I don't know if you guys saw the finish to that game. Absolutely crazy ending where West Virginia has the ball down 2, and Sean McNeil, their 3-point shooter, pump fakes it. And that pump fake was the difference in him getting the shot off in time. He made the shot too, but it was off by a fraction of a second, really. And West Virginia would have won. So Oklahoma State, though, I mean, they've been playing extremely well. They beat West Virginia on the road without Cade Cunningham, which is an insane win for them, honestly. West Virginia still has the issue where they can't guard. I loved that team in the beginning of the year, but now they're starting to fade, especially on the defensive end. But Oklahoma State's looking really impressive. You know, they're only going to get better when Isaac Likely comes back. They're do-it-all point guard. And this is going to be a dangerous team come March, especially just because of Cade Cunningham. You know, he's going to put so much pressure on defenses. He gets fouled all the time and just scores freebies from the line. So they have a ton of weapons, good shooting, and they play just good enough defense. They're battle-tested in the Big 12. They're a team I'm high on come March.
So, A.Scott, you're telling me that if they lose tomorrow, they're a 2 seed. And if they win it all, they're a 2 seed. They're locked into a 2 seed?
I don't know. I think if they beat Baylor, if they win it all and beat Baylor, I think and Illinois doesn't win the Big Ten, or Iowa or Ohio State doesn't win.
No ifs. No, we're not playing that game. We could do that all day. You're saying that they are locked into a 2 seed right now. If they lose tomorrow, they don't drop to like a 3 or a 4?
Yes. I don't see them dropping farther down than the 2. Yes. I could see them going up to the 1 if they make the run, but I don't see them going lower than the 2.
Like Pop mentioned, the hottest team in the country, up there with like the Illinois. Cade Cunningham is that superstar player. I think he got Player of the Year as well in the Big 12 in one of the first, I think since Trae Young, freshman to win Big 12 Player of the Year. So good for him. Scary team. They shouldn't even be in the tournament. They're taking one of Cuse's spots.
I know, yeah. What are they we call it? Not reviewing. Contending, I guess you could say. They're NCAA ban. And they're being allowed to play. The ACC, though, their highest team I have seeded is Florida State at a 3. Maybe Florida State could get the 2. Papi, I know you're an ACC guy. Do you think they deserve a higher seeded team?
Not really. I mean, I think that's probably where Florida State belongs. If they do win the conference championship, then yeah, maybe they sneak into a 2 line. But stuff's moving so fast just because of the low number of games too. And, a big win for any of these teams, even a top tier team, like you mentioned, a big win for like Alabama over Arkansas in their conference championship does so much for their resume. So, for Florida State, if they were to beat Virginia again in the ACC championship, I think then they'd maybe move to a 2 seed.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not gonna end the podcast without at least touching on the Pac-12. Right now, I have 4 teams from the Pac-12 in there. Oregon is my highest seeded team, followed by Colorado, USC, and UCLA. No Cal Bear sighting yet, Lucas. Out of those 4 teams, though, who are you taking out of this? Who should we be, I guess, on our radar from the Pac-12?
I think it has to be USC. Evan Mobley is a force in the paint and on defense. they've been the most consistent, I think. I haven't watched too much of them. They also have his brother Isaiah Mobley, the Mobley twins, coming together and making a run at it. But 11-seeded Cal Bears after upsetting Stanford. Give us a chance. We play Colorado tonight. If we can squeak by them, and then, you never know what can happen. The Cal Bears, I believe we're 9-14, have a chance to make the tournament.
One team I will say to watch out for is Oregon. They've been back in the tournament. They've had some good runs. They've won 10 of 11. I know it's the Pac-12, but they've beaten in that stretch Utah, Colorado, at Arizona, UCLA. So they've beaten pretty much everybody. They're 20-5 on the year, which is an impressive record. They're up to a 5 seed in my bracket. I heard you say yes, Papi, right away. You liking the Ducks?
Yes, I really like this Oregon team. They have depth of scoring too, which is just gigantic come March. You mentioned Dana Altman in the past has taken some teams, in my opinion, who maybe aren't even as talented as this team he currently has, and he's taken them on deep runs in the NCAA tournament. They have 5 guys averaging in double figures, which is gigantic. They shoot the three-pointer at a pretty proficient clip. Their best player, Chris Duarte, actually a New York native and was recruited by Syracuse. It's a name I haven't seen in a while, but he's shooting 44% from 3 this year, so extremely proficient from there. And, yeah, Oregon, you mentioned it. I know they won on the road at USC too. I think they've kind of cemented themselves as the top team from the Pac-12. And if they do win this conference tournament, I think they could probably sneak into a 4 or even a 3 seed maybe, because their record's going to be really impressive.
Yeah, this was a team that had a lot of injuries too at the beginning of the year. Yeah. They didn't have all their good players playing together, it seemed like, in the beginning of the year, and then they finally started to play together. Now they're actually clicking. 5 guys, 10. I mean, what I look for in tournament teams is, getting scoring from multiple people, because you have to win 6 games in a row. There's a chance your best player isn't going to be on for all 6 of those games. So you need guys that can pick it up. And they have 5 guys in double figures. Another name that sticks out to me is LJ Figueroa, transfer from St. John's, I believe. And another senior guard, experienced guard. That's what wins in March. That's what it seems like, at least. Oregon Ducks don't sleep on the Pac-12. They're a conference that doesn't get enough love, Lucas. And I want to apologize about that, because Oregon, they're going to go to the Final Four and nobody's going to talk about it.
It's just been a weird year. I mean, we got maybe 5 Pac-12 football games, I think. I maybe count on 2 hands how many Pac-12 games. And the same thing happens in the Pac-12 and for basketball. It's just insane. But I do think there will be a couple teams making noise just because no one really – they're going to sleep on them. Everyone thinks the Pac-12 is an inferior conference, but people forget, like, Oregon has consistently taken good teams to the Elite 8 Final Four.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
people forget it's the Conference of Champions, as Bill Walton will always remind you.
Exactly. Even more so.
How could anyone ever forget that the Pac-12 is the Conference of Championships?
It's just a fact. It's just a fact. I don't make the rules. That's what they call us.
If you haven't watched a Bill Walton commentated game, I hope and pray that they put one in the NCAA tournament, because everybody needs to watch one before they leave this earth, because it is not like any basketball game you've ever seen before. But before
the Pac-12 championship, because he won't be doing the NCAA tournament, sadly.
They're not going to put him on the big time?
No, I mean, he doesn't have he's an ESPN guy, so.
Gotcha. Contracts. Yeah. Speaking of the contracts, the NBA guys, they were balling out, getting some extra money in the All-Star game this year, making some extra money for some HBCUs. Great to see a lot of charity money awarded. Great to see, I guess, the dunk contest. It was whatever. Steph Curry won the three-point contest. Lucas was happy about that. But the big thing on our one last thing we're going to talk about is what I saw before halftime of the NBA All-Star game, when Damian Lillard and Steph Curry decided that, our range is half court now. Lucas, I know you've seen Steph Curry his entire career, but half-court shots, is this like a normal thing for him now?
Oh, that's his jumper. That's a layup for him. He practices it. He's, it really comes down to the work ethic. Like, Damian Lillard and Steph have probably two of the best work ethic because of their size. I mean, they are always going to be disregarded as a top talent against like 6'9", 6'10", 7'5" Kevin Durant type players, and it's the work ethic. They can make those shots in their sleep. They practice it nonstop, and it's the work that they put out there that they deserve the credit for. I mean, Will there ever be a shot that's worth more points than a three? I sincerely doubt it, and I hope it doesn't happen. But I've been wrong before many a times.
I was going to say, they're shooting at more than 50%. Damian Lillard went 1 for 2 from half court. Steph Curry went 1 for 1. Papi, the 4-point shot.
I mean, I'm all in on it. In my opinion, there was no need to really add a three-point shot from what I've seen when I go back and look at the way basketball used to be played. But, it's changed the game for the better. And now at this point, I say, why not go all in and add it? It would add a new dimension to the game. And it'd probably be interesting to watch, I'm sure. But I still get frustrated sometimes when I see guys, the Nuggets come to mind against the Wizards a couple weeks ago when you got a wide open fast break, a 3 or a 4-on-1, down by what, Anthony? They're down 1, so they needed a layup. Yeah, they needed a layup down the stretch, and they had a 4-on-1, and all 4 guys run straight to the three-point line. Just because that's what they're conditioned to do now. So why not institute a 4-point line and have all 5 guys run to the 4-point line? So why not do that going forward?
If you have a 4-point line, it's an entirely different game. The sport isn't even called basketball anymore, in my opinion, but it would just add so much more dimension. Do you foul down 4 now? And do you just play defense now down 4 because you just hit the 4-point shot? Are you going to be guarding guys full court? But it was just impressive to see them shoot it. I know it was an all-star game, doesn't matter, but just for them to have the confidence that, yeah, I make this about half the time. There's a chance this is going in is insane. Because it used to be not 5-6 years ago. Half-court shots, I mean, I don't know. They were never even thought of as you could just step into it and shoot it. It was always just a heave, and now people are making it regularly. Any other thoughts from the All-Star weekend before we let it go? I do want to point out that I was 3 for 3 in my skills competition predictions.
Congratulations. And also before I make my assertions for the All-Star game, I will say that both of you guys did do very well on a live bet for Gonzaga. The fact that they were Papi plus money on a Gonzaga bet is free.
Yeah, that was free. That was free. Against BYU, we jumped in and took them.
I couldn't believe it when you told me that you got him at plus money. A.Scott, what'd you get him at, 4?
Yeah, -4 for about even. It was like -110, and I got him at -4 when it was like Gonzaga was down 2 or tied with 4 minutes left, and Gonzaga won by double digits. Like, they're just far and above. They're 5 NBA players playing against 2 NBA players and 3 guys that go to class every day.
That's a good point. I mean, they ended up winning by, 11 or 10? It was double digits.
10 or 11. Yeah, it was double digits.
Definitely below what the real line was before the game, but hey, you'll take that as a live bet. My assertions about the All-Star game, I love the All-Star game. I always have. I always will. I'm always for it. Crazy seeing LeBron and Steph on the same court, but you could tell – with KD and Embiid being out for Team Durant, it was just never gonna be a game. You have LeBron drafting a team that has Luka Doncic, who did half-ass the entire All-Star weekend. Did you see him in the skills contest?
Yeah,
he was top 1 or 2 worst performances of All-Star. Like, he did not care at all, which sucks, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but. He's a starter. He can do whatever he wants. He's a grown man. He's only 21. I'm 4 years older than him. It's great. Then LeBron drafts Jokic, Giannis, and Steph. What team can you? That might be. We're talking like all-star teams. That might be the greatest all-star team of all time when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I understand the skills competition is like the third leg of the 3 big events, but why are you even participating? I'm sure Covington loved to get the invite. A guy that wasn't even a part of it and got to do it.
He was an HBCU guy as well. I think that was a big part of it, which is awesome.
Exactly, yeah. And, I don't know, just give the opportunity to somebody that will actually give 100%. I didn't like seeing that at all. I get it. He can do whatever he wants, but don't even do it. I'm sure he was asked, do you want to do it? He wasn't forced to do it. Give your spot to somebody else if you're not going to try.
Agreed.
My only assertion was it was a bad day to be Kevin Durant's charity of choice.
That's true. Got wiped out in all the quarters and lost the game.
You hate to see it. Also, it was. How do you guys feel about the plus 24 at the end of 3, and you just got to score 24 points to win? I feel like it's so easy for any team to get to 24 points now in a quarter or in any type of non-clock mattered time.
I like it only for the fact that there's no following at the end of games. that's a huge bonus of having the Elam ending, it's called, is that you're just playing to a score. So what's
That is true.
following? You're not going to save time. There's no time. So I do like that. Honestly, I kind of would like it if the NBA tried it out or college tried it out.
Yeah,
Cool.
I mean, I've watched my fair share of Elam ending with the basketball tournament, Boeheim's Army, obviously, and I also don't mind it. I thought that at first I wasn't going to like it, but the more you watch it, the more it becomes just easier on the eyes, really, down the stretch. You mentioned the fouling is the big thing. Teams are always trying to stop the clock and preserve the clock, and that doesn't really become a factor when you do the Elam ending. So it's different, and yeah, I wouldn't hate to see it tried out at different levels.
Mm-hmm. The game always ends on a game winner. That's always exciting.
Yeah,
That's a good point. I do like that aspect, and that the logo, the Lillard logo one was just chef's kiss to like how
you knew it was ending on something like that too. It's a crazy 3-point. But that about does it from Kelly to Cuse up in the Rafters. Thanks for tuning in. Big week of college basketball ahead. Big week for the Kelly to Cuse guys. Depending on what happens on March Madness on Selection Sunday, we may be going live either via Instagram or on Twitter. So check our Twitter at Kelly to Cuse. We'll have all of our updates there. We could have a podcast midweek. We'll keep you updated as things get rolled out. But one thing we do know for certain is that we'll have another episode next Thursday right before the first round games tip off on Friday. And then also, you should join the Kelly to Cuse Bracket Challenge because I heard everybody's doing it. We have a free one, and we have one that is $20. We'll put the details on our Twitter as well. So at Kelly to Cuse is where you can find all those details. Join the bracket, have some fun, enjoy some college basketball. That's it for us.
Peace.